Thank you for joining us on Best Practices. With me today, joining us one more time is Matt Rosner. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, Steve. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Last time you were here, we talked about best practices for organizational development. Go back and listen to that episode if you've not heard it. Today, I would love to talk about developing a specialty in your practice. So, best practices for carving out a new specialty. We've both been in eye care for a long time, you several generations more than me. In the time that I've been here since the early 2000s, we've seen the scope of eye care expand quite a bit, and this ability to specialize has gotten more and more pervasive in a good way. So a practitioner can be a low vision specialist or a sports vision specialist or aesthetics or med spa. There are ODs that are working with audiologists next door or sometimes in the same practice. So there are lots of different things that a practice could do. Questions that I have for you: how does a practice do any of those things well?
Doing it well, and I might back up one step, which
Okay.
is starting it, right? Doing it well is maybe if we look at crawl, walk, run, fly. Doing it well is like running and flying. But crawling and walking is really where a lot of the hiccups and pain points happen that prevent us from getting to great performance. So if we were just to look at the first stage of starting a specialty, it is the decision, making the decision to pursue something other than what you're pursuing or offering today. That is, I would say that's step one. Let's start there.
Okay. I think that makes perfect sense. So, like, solving any problem is acknowledging that one exists, right? Creating in solving problems for your patients starts with acknowledging that your patients have this problem. So, let's assume for a moment that as a practice, we're doing well financially, we're busy, maybe we're too busy. The OD owner wants to carve out a specialty. And let's say they're interested in the neuro components of optometry. Where do they start?
Yeah. So if they're interested, right, that is step one, right? And I built a little framework of the five P's for successful specialty practice. And the first one's passion, right? So if they're interested in the neuro area, that aligns with having good long-term outcomes because you're in it for the right reasons. If the passion is there when it gets hard, you're going to stick with it because you're there for a deeper reason.
By
Yeah,
contrast, that, don't go into a specialty because your neighbor is doing that specialty.
but you don't act, your heart's not actually in it.
I think
Yeah,
that's a really
exactly.
important distinction because it is a common reason that I hear in the industry all the time that practices make decisions. They bring in certain frame collections, or they invest in certain equipment, or they do something because they expect a financial return on their financial investment without considering whether or not they want to do this thing.
Yeah. Well, like even there, right? We're talking about a financial investment, right? Buying a IPL machine is not the same as starting a dry eye specialty. So there's a difference between am I doing it and pursuing it with your whole heart and your commitment. So there's a lot of clinics that have expensive machinery that is part of, offering specialty care, but they never really invested the energy and the heart in making this something that is theirs, right? The passion wasn't there, so the intention wasn't there. And now they have this IPL that they don't really use because no one on their team's really invested in it because they bought the machine at a show because they got excited, right? So I think that passion really is the thread that pulls a strong execution through time.
Okay, so passion is the first P. What is the second P?
All right. The second P is prevalence. So, we there are a lot of things that we can offer as optometric clinics. You mentioned aesthetics, low vision, sports vision, audiology, and optometry combined. there are so many different things, such a colorful landscape of different things that we can offer patients. However, when you're thinking about, like, if you are headed towards retirement and you want to work half a day a week and you're not trying to grow your practice or make more money and create, you're really just looking for pure passion, do whatever you want. Do whatever makes you the most happy. However, if you are a ambitious practice owner or an early partner in a larger practice, and you are looking towards your future, where you'd like to build financial independence and you would like to build stability and growth and create something that will create generational wealth or sustained success for you and the people around you, you've got to think about how many people out there need what I'm considering offering. Right. So if we are looking at, I don't know, I was going to pull out some esoteric fake specialty that
Well,
only
let's say
applies,
if
you
your
know, yeah,
practice is near a large retirement community, maybe starting a pediatric clinic doesn't make a ton of sense.
totally fair. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so prevalence is the next one. And when we look at, all of the specialties you could choose from, let's say we're looking at myopia management, right? There's a statistic that about 40% of children are at risk of developing myopia. There are other statistics like for low vision, right? And how many patients are aging and could benefit from low vision services, or amblyopia. Like 2 to 3% of Americans are diagnosed with amblyopia. So knowing some of those statistics, and there's another one that's sort of an umbrella term for the binocular vision challenges called BVD, binocular vision dysfunction, that impacts about 20 to 30% of all Americans, of the total population. And we don't talk about BVD a lot, but I'll give a quick plug on what it is. It's an umbrella term for all of the different binocular vision dysfunctions that people experience, but they're oftentimes subtle misalignments, vertical heterophoria that causes dizziness or car sickness or chronic neck pain. And because with BVD, we're not talking about diplopia, we're talking about these subtle misalignments that cause seemingly non-visual symptoms like light sensitivity or car sickness or dyslexia, that patients don't necessarily go to their optometrist first for their anxiety on the highway. So, knowing the prevalence of different conditions and the opportunity to address that population, and in the business world, we'd call that a total addressable market. How big is the customer base that I could address? So the next one is prevalence. And it's all about understanding, are there enough people in my community or in my area to serve that I can create a healthy and growth-oriented specialty around?
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You can be passionate about something, but if it doesn't make sense for your neck of the woods, maybe do other things before you get to that, or have another specialty you can build in that is more prevalent and then add on to that. What's the third P?
Okay, the third P is pain. And this one I'll explain because there are certain specialties focused around long-term improvement. One example would be sports vision. Another would be myopia management, where we know it's impending, but today it doesn't hurt. Dry eye can be very uncomfortable. And so that is one that is more pain centric in terms of what's the pain and how, as a clinician, can I treat it? Another one, I mentioned BVD, patients are in real pain. They're feeling dizzy or disoriented, and they're unable to go to work or function in normal society and be a fully productive citizen within our frameworks of daily life. So the reason pain is the third one is the conversation you have with a parent about their child's potential myopia or progressing myopia. And we listen to the lectures and webinars, and it's all about creating almost like FOMO, fear of messing up, in the parent's psyche, so that they feel this impending guilt if they don't pursue myopia management with their child. That's and if you're selling a course of vision therapy, it's a large investment for a parent. there is a similar sort of pitch to be made. There's a sale to be made when the pain isn't immediate. However, dry eye is a perfect example. A BVD is another, where when you intercept that patient in your clinic, they are actively struggling. The pain is felt today. It's immediate. In the sales and marketing world, there's the difference between selling a Band-Aid and selling an aspirin. We sell that we're selling a vitamin and selling an aspirin, right? The vitamin is the promise of long-term balance, health, etc. And the aspirin is, I have a headache and I need to solve this now. And so, not to say that one is better than the other, but again, if you're looking towards growth and you're looking towards building a differentiated specialty, a niche specialty that helps your practice get away from vision plans or work smarter and not harder, you want to look for specialties where pain or acute pain is part of the condition, because you're going to have the opportunity to deliver immediate relief to that patient. So not only is the decision for the patient easier to make, but as a clinician, oftentimes you're able to deliver more immediate outcomes, which in today's day and age, we love instant gratification and immediate outcomes. So that can be a real winner when it comes to specialty care.
So what the way that I'm reading your description of pain in the 5 Ps is the patient's ability to express pain and the practice's ability to address pain. So that the pain point exists when a patient can come in and say, hey, I'm experiencing this. And the practice can address that pain point by saying, I'm sorry that's happening to you, but good news, we can solve it, or we can address it, or we can make it easier, and let's get you into this chair.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. What's the fourth P?
The fourth P is protocol. So having a strong protocol for treating said condition, right? So the first part was patient's ability to express pain and their feeling of pain. And the second half of that was the practice's ability to say, yep, we can help you, right? So to be able to confidently say, yes, we can help you requires a protocol or requires a repeatable methodology to deliver outcomes for patients. Now, this can take a lot of forms. It can include pharmaceuticals. It can include equipment and machinery, depending on what the condition is. It can include active or passive therapy. Your first question is about how to have a great specialty. Dabbling is maybe where one starts, but one cannot be a clinical dabbler and have a thriving specialty practice. There has to be a decision somewhere along the way to either dig deep and hit the books and learn approaches and refine your process and really deliver a consistent protocol and outcome for your patients. That's got to happen. Because practices who have embraced specific protocols are going to get more reliable results, more 5-star reviews, more raving patients, because you've dialed in, you've invested in a successful approach to treat that patient.
It makes perfect sense. I think you can't dabble successfully in a specialty, I think is an important realization for lots of folks who might be listening to this. I've seen at this point thousands of practice websites in the US, and many of them say we do dry eye, we do myopia management, we do sports vision, we do low vision. And just as a general rule, if you claim to specialize in everything, you specialize in nothing.
Yeah, let's talk about food. I love food. I know you do too. And like, if we're in a desperate sorts for a nice steak, are we going to go to Olive Garden, who does have steak on the menu?
Right.
Or are we going to go to a, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse where all they do is steak, right? Are you going to pay more at Ruth's Chris? Sure. But if you are looking for a top-notch, sort of life-changing steak, you're going to go to Ruth's Chris. You're not going to Olive Garden. And so I think that is such an important point, is the more you sort of decide or index on or prioritize a specialty, the more patients are going to trust that you are the person they need to go to. You're the specialist, you're the go-to, and you're the expert that they can trust.
Yeah, this the food analogy is perfect for this. So like immediately my head went to Cheesecake Factory, right? You think about the Cheesecake Factory and their 70-page menu, and most of the food on their menu is pretty good. It's like a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10. And you can get Cajun jambalaya pasta, and you can get marinara pasta, and you can get like beef and broccoli, which is vaguely Chinese food, sort of. But you're never going to have a 10 out of 10 experience at the Cheesecake Factory because that's not what they do. They're trying to be all things to all people and end up doing most things pretty well. But when you're talking about eye care, when you're talking about healthcare, would you really want a 6 out of 10 experience? Absolutely not.
Fair. And people are there is and we talk about the audiences, total addressable markets, all that stuff. But there's an audience for Cheesecake Factory. Like there are people looking for that price point and that 7 out of 10 experience. If you gave them the 10 out of 10 experience, they wouldn't appreciate it because maybe
Right.
they're not, they don't have a hankering for a life changing steak. So they're not willing to pay for a life changing steak. So in some ways, you want to, they say, find the market and situate yourself next to it. Right? The idea that you can create a market is sort of a common fallacy. You look for the market and you go towards it. So if you're looking to do Cheesecake Factory type care, find other places that are doing that care and succeeding in finding those patients and do the same thing. But if you're looking to specialize, and I would argue the life changing steak is the analog for the specialty. My partner doesn't eat a lot of meat, so maybe we'll also say like a brilliant vegan restaurant, a life changing tempeh. Then you want to take those best practices and apply them to what you're doing because there is an established success pattern in motion that you can learn from. And I've got no issues with copying best practices or learning from those that are doing better and going further, faster, and impacting more lives than we are. Yeah,
That's the whole idea. The thrust behind this podcast is that there are best practices for whatever process you want to do. Now, those best practices are generalizations, but learning from them and adapting them to your particular situation is the name of the game. Right. We've been talking about food, and apologies to Cheesecake Factory and its fans. I don't mean to take shots. They do like it's pretty good. It's not, it's just not the best thing in the world. But if you like, as you travel, or 90% of the reason I travel is to eat at places that are further away than I normally am willing to go. So if you go to a new restaurant or a new cuisine and you encounter it and like, oh, that's an interesting use of this spice, I'm gonna steal that. And then you do. Like the first time I went to a Persian restaurant and had dill and fava bean rice, I was like, oh man, I've never had dill and rice, and now one of my favorite things. So you absolutely learn
sounds
from other
great.
people's best practices.
The recipe and the notes.
Go get a little bit uncomfortable, see what is out there, and the things that resonate with you, the things that generate passion in you, learn about them, get good at it, build a protocol, and then you can have that whenever you want. All right, fifth P.
Yeah. But there's one more thing on build a protocol, right? Not everyone needs to build a protocol because that sounds really daunting. And not everyone has the energy or the interest in building a protocol. You can also adopt a protocol. You can learn a protocol. There are amazing lecturers and experts across the industry who are in a more academic headspace or who do have more time and space to create, maybe in the academic world or in a larger institution. And they're spending time building these best practices, refining them, testing them. So, yes, you can build your own protocol and it's a thoroughly enjoyable experience, but it's an energy intensive one. And the other option is to adopt or find a protocol that resonates with you. And that's an example of what can really help you get started faster. It takes a long time to build a protocol, but if you onboard one, it can take weeks to months to be at full speed. And that can make the difference for delivering that ROI for the practice.
It's the difference between, knowing how to cook everything and being able to follow a recipe, right? If you're able to follow a recipe, you can have that thing at home today. And then if you do that recipe over and over again, you will find out the things you like better. the things that you can omit, the things that you need more of, the things that you would rather have. There's a lot you can learn from how somebody has written the process for. That doesn't mean you're done. It's a good place to start. It's a good place to hone your own skills.
100%.
Awesome.
All right. So you asked, what's
We're
the
gonna keep
fifth
these
P?
food metaphors going, I'm sure. What's the fifth P?
I was going to make a joke. Parsnips. No.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. Puree.
the fifth P is profit. And I save it for last because, in a industry of caring for people, profits are important. We are running businesses. We need to cover costs. We need to be successful in this economic system we exist in. So pick something that is inherently profitable. And if you've never done a profit and loss analysis or a pro forma analysis on a new opportunity like an IPL machine or a neurovisual specialty, take the time and do it. And it doesn't take very long. And if you're not comfortable doing it, one, ChatGPT can probably help. But two, there's tons of great experts out there in the industry that can help you analyze that decision. But go in to a specialty knowing that the economics are sound. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who were convinced that building a nutraceutical specialty would be the life-changing thing that would enable them to retire and build a Corvette. Or there's some other specialties that have come and gone in optometry. Make sure that you do the numbers, you do the napkin math, and maybe get some help because you're going to be spending time, energy, emotion, your soul building this specialty practice. And knowing that you've got the passion, that passion is a terrible thing to waste. Have the passion aligned with a profitable specialty. It will take you to the places that will give you that financial freedom and that flexibility to work 3 days a week or 2 days a week and bring on associates and build the practice of your dreams. So passion's crucial. The last step, though, make sure it's profitable so that you are running a sound business.
So two notes on that, which I think is really important. As you're building out the pro forma or a profit and loss estimate, don't get the best case scenario or don't believe the best case scenario. Have a best case scenario so you know what it could be, but also have a worst case scenario so you know what it could be. It's important to have a range so you don't anchor to the best case scenario, and the second it is less than that, you think it was a failure. And similarly, you don't have a worst case scenario, and the second it's better than that, you think, okay, well, we're smooth sailing from here, very easy going forward. So have a range, understand what the possibilities actually might be, and know that it's going to be somewhere in between. It's probably not going to be the best case scenario. And if you do the other P's right, it's probably not going to be the worst case scenario either. But understanding the possibilities is really important to keeping you sane while you're going through this process. The other thing that I want to touch on is that throughout this, when I lecture in the industry, I always talk about profitability, and I'm always really careful to point out most practices that I talk to, most doctors that I work with would rather take care of patients than consider profitability. And I understand that. And that's one of the reasons I like working in this industry because that's where their heart is. However, if your practice is not profitable, eventually you will take care of zero patients.
True. Yeah, it's crucial. And it's not something you have to think about every day. I think that's the other
Right.
thing. It is a practice, it's an exercise to do at the beginning of either business building or at the beginning of a year or the beginning of the plan to onboard a specialty. You don't have to think about it every day. You can do the work, trust that you did it right, or bring trusted advocates to help you, and then put it aside and say, this is our pricing, this is our model, this is how much time we're going to take with these patients. And then, trust but verify, right? Look back to make sure that you are delivering the outcomes you desired and calibrate. And if you're not, take a look. I like to think everything in business is an experiment. And if it's not working the way we want it to, adjust one of the variables, one of the inputs, and see how it changes. So, don't take it personally if your specialty, your new specialty is not, or established specialty isn't hitting the marks you wanted. Think of it like an experiment. Just lay it all out on the table and figure out what's the one or two things you want to change and then run the experiment tomorrow, run the experiment
Mhm.
next month, and see what the outcomes are. Because if you're not succeeding in this moment, it's because one of the inputs needs tweaking and you can deliver doing what you're doing with more successful outcomes.
Also add to this conversation, I think it's really important that people understand how to think about these things. Equally important in my mind is that building a specialty is not an event, it's a process. Just like you said, having an IPL or any piece of equipment is not equivalent to having a dry eye clinic in your business or a dry eye specialty. It could be part of it, but it is not all of it. The process, as you laid out, that is what leads you to building out that specialty. It's having all of those things in alignment and the process around it to iterate, to get better, to experiment. I think when I was a kid and a student and learning about if-then statements in hypotheses for lab reports, I was like, well, this is really formulaic and silly. But as an adult, seeing how difficult it is to predict what might happen and how to change a thing, how to experiment with variables, an if-then statement is so powerful. If my front desk person talks about BVD, if my front desk person talks about dry eye, if my front desk person or my technician or my optician asks about X, then Y. But if they don't, then Z. Because not doing something also has consequences.
Definitely. And I'll give an analog from the work that we do with clinics. Building a specialty is a team sport. It is an ongoing journey, just like we practice optometry. It's an ongoing practice to build a successful specialty. Having a framework is really important. Having a profitability model that enables your practice to succeed and trust that you're going to be successful as you follow that process. Investing in something you're passionate about that also has the prevalence to make a robust and growth oriented specialty, and doing something where people are actually feeling pain and need your help can, in the neurovisual world, that is how we pursue helping practices grow specialty care. And it's really what we've found to be the enabler to create success in this specialty realm and help practices, work smarter, not harder, reduce their reliance on vision plans, and change more lives and feel great at the end of the day about the work that they did.
And then add to that a protocol that is repeatable and
Yes, of
in
course.
a way that is profitable for the business.
Yes, all of those combined will be a recipe for success and enable you to thrive and reach goals that are because of that specialty care.
Fantastic. Matt, I can't thank you enough for the conversation and your insights. I think the audience here will really appreciate that, can learn a ton from it. If they want to reach out to you with questions, how do they get in touch?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Matt Rosner. You can email me, matt@nvminstitute.org, and I would love to connect and help you get closer to your vision of success.
Fantastic. Thank you.